And I was working in a business where although I was the best performing part of the business, I'd got to a point where I felt unappreciated in my former business. And I woke up one night and I thought I was having a heart attack.
Oh, no way.
And it's not something I recognised, and it was obviously at the time, it ended up being a panic attack. I was ended up being in hospital, and my son was still 2, so I had to go in the back of an ambulance. And my uncle Paul actually came to see me in the hospital at 3 a.m. He said, what are you playing at? Blah, blah, blah. What I'm very, very aware of was the sort of mental health of our staff. And because our biggest resource is our staff. I mean, so many businesses spend money on their office refurbs and on systems, and they don't put the resource into their staff. And without the staff, you're finished. So if you've got good staff, that is what you've got to have. And I've got really good, loyal people around me, so I put a lot of time into them, helping them to make sure they weren't suffering from any mental health. In times like this, I think you've got to be creative. You've got to find the opportunity. There are people that will shy away and blame COVID or blame Brexit or whatever. But for us, there's always an opportunity. There's always a way you can manoeuvre, adapt. Even if it wasn't down the auction, we would have found a different way to do property or something. We would have adapted. You've got to find the opportunity, and that is what we were keen to do when all of this started. There was none of us. We weren't looking at each other, shrugging and saying, "Oh bloody hell, that's the end of our business after a year. We haven't done well," patting each other on the back. It was nothing like that.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Inspire Pod with myself, Kuram Kang. We bring you the best interviews with leading business people and entrepreneurs in their field. Today we're really excited. We're here in Birmingham with a leading entrepreneur who has under 13 years experience within the property industry. He's overseen almost £200 million worth of sales within the last 2 years alone. And he's won various business awards such as Newcomer of the Year by Midlands in 2019 and won Entrepreneur of the Year award in 2020 at the Signature Awards. Our guest today is none other than Gurpreet Bassi. Okay. Gurpreet, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Very good, very good. I gave a very short intro there. Do you want to just elaborate on that? Anything you want to add for our guest?
I think it was a good intro. So there's 13 years approximately experience. So I joined a company called Bigwood at the age of 19, just as a basically apprentice, for want of a better phrase. That's what it was. It was called junior at the time. Worked my way up through there and started doing lettings, different types of property, learnt about different areas of the property industry, worked my way up to director level there. Then after a few mergers and acquisitions, I decided that it was time for me to go out on my own, which we did beginning of last year. And been going for 2 years at Bond Wolfe Auctions, and so far so good.
Wicked. No, great. And good to see that you've worked across the whole property industry as well. Yeah. So a lot of variety there. And we gave a bit of background there, but could you also elaborate a bit about your role now with Bond Wolfe and how that falls within Bond Wolfe Auctions?
Yeah, so I'm CEO of Bond Wolfe Auctions and co-founder. So we founded the business January 2019. Although a lot of the team had worked in the auction industry for longer than I've been alive. A lot of the team have, so lots of experience. My job in the business is to run it day to day, lead and win new contracts, win new business, and help our younger staff to reach their potential.
Great. And one thing we like to do in this show, as our viewers probably know, is also talk a bit about the background. And I know when we first caught up and spoke a few weeks ago, you're actually speaking about how when you're at university, you actually left halfway because it wasn't for you. And there's a lot of people out there who reach out to us saying, is it good to go uni, or shall we go do our own business or go straight into work? Can you talk about your experience, after school and how, you didn't go down the traditional university route?
Yeah, I mean, I tried to do the traditional route because I thought that's what I was meant to do. My parents would have wanted me to, and I thought that was just a done thing. Yeah. And I'm not for 1 minute here saying to kids, leave university, because it's not for everyone. For me, at that point of my life, as I said, I went there because I thought it was a done thing to do. I don't regret going there because I've met some of my best mates that are still close friends with me now, and we've grown up together, so I don't regret going there. For me, when I was there, I'm quite an early bird. I used to get up at like 6:30 in the morning. I wouldn't have a lecture till 3 o'clock. Yeah. And I could get myself into so much trouble between that time and that time. So by the time 3 o'clock came and the lecture was there, I'd probably lost my way throughout the day and decided to do something else and not bothered to go. And for me, I've always been more of a practical learner. So even when I was at school, I wasn't particularly academic. I learned more by doing things. So whether it be working in my parents' shop when I was a kid. I preferred sort of hands-on learning.
Yeah.
And so I left university. It didn't go down too well with my parents at the time, and I hope they forgive me now. My only regret for them now is that I haven't got a photo of me with a cap and gown, which all parents want, so that's my only regret on that. But I then left and decided to get into work. Now, I joined Bigwood as a junior, as an apprentice, and literally at the bottom on the shop floor, and learnt my way there. But when I got there, I felt like it was the right thing for me to do, to just sort of get my hands dirty and learn that way.
Yeah, I love that. We can make a little title for this, from uni dropout to CEO. No,
Again, I'm not advocating. It's not for everyone. It's not for everyone.
Yeah, and but you mentioned you started from the bottom with Bigwood.
Yeah.
Love that. Like, what was your vision and plan whilst you were doing that? Like, did you have this bigger goal of growing into a bigger company, or was it just getting on with it day by day?
Yeah. So when I started, it was more learning the industry, and I joined in sort of 2007, 2008, and it's more by luck than design. 2008 is when the property market and the world around us crashed for a bit with the credit crunch and stuff like that. So the lads that I went to university with, that went the distance, got their degree, and then they were coming to see me for a job, and I felt guilty because I think, they put all the hard yards in, but it's just, and as I said, it wasn't like I planned it for that to happen. It's pure by chance. And so when I got there, I was thankful for having a job, because I saw so many people around me that didn't, and I just thought, this is a great opportunity. I wasn't prepared to let it slip, but it wasn't always plain sailing.
Yeah.
So at the start, as I said, I was working on the shop floor, and it was starting at the bottom. I remember one of my first or second week there, this chairman at the time had a few guests down from London, and I was the most junior member of staff, so I was sent out to go and get the sandwiches.
Yeah.
And I didn't know. I mean, I must have been told, but I forgot throughout the day that this guy doesn't like onions on his sandwich. I just went and got the sandwich, and there was onions on the sandwich. So I went back, and I just remember there was just pure chaos in the office. Like, this guy can't eat onions. I don't know if it's an allergy or something. I can't remember. But I remember getting in my car then, and I remember driving home thinking, I've got no chance here. I can't even get a sandwich order right. But then over time, I just sort of developed a knack. And I think I always had a sort of, through family, I always had like a passion for property. So I knew it's the sort of route I was going to go down. So I started learning different bits, whether it be lettings, property management, and I really felt comfortable in the property auctions and agency, doing deals, meeting different clients, doing different properties. And at that point, I sort of got fixed on, I was going to push myself as far as I could down that route and go and get myself the biggest network possible, go and meet the best people possible, learn as much as I could about that bit of the industry, and that's what I've done.
Brilliant. That's quality. And from growing up the ladder, starting from getting sandwiches right up to now, overseeing a company that's doing almost 200 million sales in 2 years. How do you prepare yourself to get into that CEO role? And how does that feel?
I've never really reflected on getting there. It's just sort of, I remember when I became a director of Bigwood, and everyone was saying to me at the time, he's quite young. I was 26. I was the youngest director they've ever had. And I never really thought about my age or how quickly I'd done it. Yeah. I actually thought that they'd maybe directed too late, honestly, because I thought when I was 24, 25, I thought, I'm earning the most fees. I've got the biggest network. I'm running my part of the business. I just thought, and when you're a young man in a hurry, you just think everything is just taking too long. It's only now I recognise, looking back, thinking that 26 was young to have achieved that. In terms of getting myself ready for the CEO role, I think I kind of, because of the way the auction business was born, the new business, I kind of had to just overnight become that role. Because when we moved on and we set up, there's a lot of people that joined me from various different places, and a lot of people I'd worked with before. And some of them had left really, really steady jobs, and they'd sort of believed in my vision and took a risk. And so I didn't really stop to think, well, what does it mean for me to be a CEO? I just knew I had to succeed, and failure wasn't an option because there were so many people relying on me to make it work.
Great. I like, so as the audience probably know, my background's in recruitment, right? Run a recruitment company, and we're always working with clients, and there's something about CEOs who get people drawn to them to want to work for them. And you touched upon it there. Like, how do you do that? And how do you go around building that team and building confidence in those around you?
Without really speaking for them and putting words in their mouth, I hope they would say, I think a lot of them appreciate the fact that I did start from the bottom in the business, and that, so even the most junior member of staff now, I would never ask them to do a task that I haven't done or know myself. So they know and they respect that I've done it the sort of harder way. We're learning from the bottom to the top. And there was an element of trust because I've worked with a lot of them for a long time, and they know that my word's my bond, and I will, if somebody's loyal to me and they give me their all, I will make sure that I give them everything back. And we've had a great 2 years, and there are plans for us to grow and do other things with other businesses in the future. And all the people that stood side by side with me when we did this, they'll all share in that in the future. And I'll make sure I look after everybody that was there for me at the start.
That's great. And again, you didn't speak about skills or anything. It was just pure culture, trust, loyalty.
Yeah. And I think a lot of our business is built on that sort of loyalty and culture. And we've got a brilliant team. And there are certain non-negotiables in our team, which they're not spoken about, but stuff like hard work, loyalty, punctuality, be on time, and leave egos at the door. So our staff, there's no egos there. Doesn't matter how senior you are, how junior you are, everybody's a team, and there's a real sort of togetherness in our group, and it works and it shows in our results, I think.
Yeah. And there's obviously a lot of great success. We can speak about a lot of the work that you did to maneuver your business around COVID later on. But before we go into that, can you talk to us about the risks, the challenges, the sacrifices that it really takes in leading a business, and what you've probably gone through yourself? Yeah.
There are a lot of sacrifices, particularly when you are starting a business, and my work-life balance hasn't been brilliant the last couple of years, and I'm very, very fortunate. So I've got a really understanding wife and son, and to be honest, having them has been one of the major reasons I've been able to do what I can do. So they've sort of, before that I was a young lad trying to just duck and dive and do certain things, but getting married and having a son, it gives you a purpose, and it gave me a goal, and I wanted to achieve for them as well as me. And they have been so understanding in the fact that dad's at work, and it's not all, everyone sees the results and people say, it's easy, you're doing really well, but they don't see the 4 or 5 o'clock starts, and they don't see the 2, 3 o'clock finishes at night in the morning, and they've been quite regular the past 2 years, particularly as you touched on before with COVID. I mean, we've started a new business in the last 2 years. We've had to deal with Brexit, we've had to deal with an election, and then when we thought we'd got over that, we come back in the new year, start the year well, and we get a global pandemic to deal with as well. So you just think, and the way the business has performed in that is because of the sacrifices, not just myself, as the team as well, and a lot of them do make sacrifices for the greater good.
And when you're going through the sacrifices, you mentioned obviously your family are a big part of that, and your goal and bigger vision. But could you give a better examples of what you're actually doing during that sacrifice? Because people probably don't actually understand. Like you said, it's like the iceberg analogy. It looks good on top, but it's sacrifice, work ethic, everything below that. Could you give examples on what you've had to do to get your business to where it is?
So I left my previous employer October 2018. I left, and we launched the new business January 2019. So there's a few months in between there that we set up a company, got bank accounts. We didn't have an office, didn't have any furniture. So we had to get all of that, didn't have staff, didn't have any systems, didn't have stationery, there's nothing at all. We just blank canvas. There was myself, there's a group of people that trusted in me, and I didn't sleep very well between October and January because I was thinking, I've got to get this right. Yeah. So there was lots of meeting builders, there's lots of which you don't see, there was lots of branding and things, lots of little different things that, people just see the end result, but there's lots of little things in between. So there's meeting employment lawyers, doing contracts out, stuff that I probably myself didn't appreciate at the time. When I left, I just thought, I've left, I've got an idea, I've got a way, I've got a network, I've got a good group of people around me, and I've got a way in which I think I can deliver this business. So there's that, but there's everything that goes with that, which is, again, doing the contracts, offices. I mean, our office downstairs, we've done a good job in it now, but it's a complete blank canvas. Yeah. When we went there, even in, I think, the second week of December, there was nothing in there. And Brian and mine, we launched on the 7th of January, and there was at times we were a bit nervous, but I remember saying to our team, we're going to have our first auction in March 2019. And they were like, are you sure we don't want to do this in May? I was like, no, we need to, because how our business works, because I'd been sort of the face of the old business in October 18. If I was out of the game for longer than that period, people do forget and they want to, because property traders and clients still want to sell and buy. Yeah. And if I'm away for 6, 7, 8 months, they will find other people to deal with. Okay. So I had to make sure that I was back in the game, as it were, as quick as possible. Okay. So that's why I had to put those extra hours in, and so did the staff. But at the moment, touch wood, it's paid off, and hopefully it continues to do.
That's great. And just going on there, like with strategy and hiccups coming up, you did pivot and many of your business during COVID, which a lot of businesses, a lot of people have had to do. Could you talk to us about that and what you did and what the end results have been so far?
Yeah, a lot of businesses, as you say, have had to sort of adapt, but I would say none as much as probably ours had, because our business was. And the end goal of our business is to have a room full of people buying property. That's how an auction works. And with COVID, that's impossible. So if you'd have told me last year, you can't have people in a room, you can't send catalogues out because the posts are funny about these, and I probably wouldn't have tried to do this with auction business. If this would have happened, if we'd have been launching our business in January 2020 and this all happened, then there's a good chance we wouldn't have gone through with it, because it's never been done. But because we'd had the year behind us and we had a bit of momentum, a bit of track record, we sort of stepped back and during that lockdown period, and where a lot of people took time off work, we then worked really hard in that period to sort of remodel exactly how we do our business. So everything's gone remote. There's a camera, there's an auctioneer. We're still able to win business and win contracts and get properties in the auction. But on the day of the auction, it's completely different. You've got the auctioneer on the screen, so people can log in and bid at home. Yeah. And it's something that I'd never really appreciated how far we could take that. And our last auction, we had 33,000 people watch the auction.
Oh, wow.
Which is incredible. And we're never going to get that in a room anyway. Yeah. So we've adapted well. I do hope we can go back to the room one day. I don't know when that will be. It looks like maybe summer next year. That's what they're saying at the earliest. And although we've performed well, and our year out of the room has been better than our year in the room in terms of results and fees and stuff like that, but I would still go back to the room. Yeah. Because I miss the buzz. And our auction, it wasn't just an auction, people buying and selling property. It became an event. There was like networking going on. You could see, feel, smell it. There was business happening in the room, and it was nobody can replicate that. Anybody can have a guy and a camera selling property. And some of the smaller auctioneers who can't fill a room will continue that way, and they should, and it's better for them. But for us, because we can fill the room, and because of the event that we produce, we will get back to the room. But also, it will be a hybrid, so there will still be people that can bid. And I think more and more people now, instead of, if you can go to an auction, we can have 100, 200 lots, and you could be coming to bid on 100, 190 and get to the auction at 9 o'clock. You could be there for 6 or 7 hours before your lot comes up. There's no need for that. You can log in from the office, from home, from wherever you are, and bid. But there are still some people that would still go to the room. And I guarantee, if I had an auction tomorrow in the room, I still have 1,000 people in there. No matter in the middle of COVID, there are still that sort of hardcore property dealers, investors, and people that just enjoy going and they have that feel.
Yeah. Well, while you speaking there, it reminded me of the first episode we did. So we spoke with Paresh Dabdra. He's co-founder of Rushel FX. Mm-hmm. And he said all that a recession means is that you have to work a bit harder. Is that's literally just the difference? Yeah. There's nothing you could change or do.
No, I completely agree. I think in times like this, I think you've got to be creative. You've got to find the opportunity. There are people that will shy away and blame COVID or blame Brexit or whatever. But for us, there's always an opportunity. There's always a way you can manoeuvre, adapt. Even if it wasn't down the auction, we would have found a different way to do property or something. We would have adapted. Yeah. You've got to find the opportunity, and that is what we were keen to do when all of this started. There was none of us weren't looking at each other, shrugging and saying, "Oh bloody hell, that's the end of our business after a year. We haven't done well," patting each other on the back. It was nothing like that. Obviously, had to step back and have a look at the bigger picture and see what was going on out there and how we could adapt our business to tailor to the new world. In the interim period, and that's exactly what we did.
And when you're coming up with like new ideas and new plans to move forward, where does that come from? Like, is it advisors, people around you looking at what other people in the market? How do you get creative and move forward with it?
Yeah, and I think there are you look at the best people in the market and you learn from them, and also you did a similar interview with my uncle Paul. is a really good advisor, and he's there for me whenever I need.
One of the best people you can learn from.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes his ideas are a bit out there, and I don't always go with them. And sometimes he doesn't like our ideas, but we do then. And he's open to hearing my feedback and thoughts. And from the very beginning, he was there for advice. And especially during this period, it was important to have him as well, because he has been through proper recessions, as he calls it, in the 90s. So he knows what that's like. I mean, none of us knew what this pandemic was going to be like, because nobody can see into the future. But because he's dealt with ups and downs in the market before, he was able to sort of give me some really, really good advice on how to handle staff and during that period. Because that is one thing I was very, very aware of, was the sort of mental health of our staff. And because our biggest resource is our staff, I mean, so many businesses spend money on their office refurbs and on systems, and they don't put the resource into their staff. And without the staff, you're finished. So if you've got good staff, that is what you've got to have. And I've got really good, loyal people around me, so I put a lot of time into them, helping them to make sure they weren't suffering from any mental health issues. We've also employed a professional coach for all of our team, and he comes in once every other month and sits down, has one-to-ones with our team. And I never know what they talk about. They could never talk about business. They could just talk about their personal life, but that's fine if that's what they talk about, to get them, as long as they're there and they're getting things off their chest, they're speaking, and ultimately it will improve our business, and it'll be good for my business in the future.
That's great. So much more awareness about people in businesses these days, and good to see, major companies like yourselves adapting to that as well. And, you've obviously come a very, far away in just a few years with Bond Wolfe Auctions. Where do you see yourselves being in the next 5-10 years?
Yeah, so on that, I get that a lot. People say it's far quickly. Yeah. To me, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like it's been a long time. We've been going. I mean, I've been working in the industry for, as you said at the start, 13 years. So although now people are seeing us at the front and with all these great results, it has been a hard graft, and it's been a lot of years have gone into it. In the next sort of 5 years, there are obviously growth plans for our business. We are looking to sort of hold standalone commercial auctions. At the moment, it's only being done in London, where they do residential properties and commercial properties. Everywhere else, they seem to mix their catalogues up. Okay. So I want to get us to where we're a major commercial property player, and that's what we're working on. There's a few ideas being bounced about in the background that we're working on. There's a business that we're excited about, which we'll be launching in January, which I'll share the details with you later. It's out of property. It's nothing to do with property. Although it will complement the property side of things, so it's more down sort of the media route and things like that. But it's something that we're really, really passionate about, and we think it could be good for that media business, but also the knock-on effect for the property business that we've got, auctions and agency. I think it could be really, really big for that. And I think at the moment, although the bit of the business I'm looking after is mainly the auction part, there is definitely plans to move to new regions with it. We've looked at Leeds, Bristol and other areas where we'd sort of branch out, although we do at the moment from our national hub in the middle of the country, we are able to sell throughout the country. We are looking to have more of a presence in these areas, and also different parts of property as well. So there's property agency, there's management, there's our own portfolio that we're working on. So there's lots of things we are going to plug in. And in the next 10 years, I would want Bond Wolfe brand to be one of the most recognisable and strongest property brands in the UK. That is my goal, and I believe it's achievable. Yeah.
And there's so much there to take in that you're going to be doing and already starting on. For anybody again watching this and saying, I want to grow my business, or I want to go, take it to the next step, or even start, where should they begin, and how should they know how to grow or what to grow towards?
Yeah, I think it's important if you're going to start a business. I think it's important to know your industry, know your business, and be something you're passionate about. Now, whether that you want to be a florist, own a shop, it's something you've got to be very, very passionate about. It's got to be an industry you know about. I'd urge people then to go and speak to people that have already succeeded in that industry. Don't be too proud to do that. I mean, I've spoken to people that have done well in industry, and I'm happy to pick the phone up to them even now. But I do know some people don't want to. They see it as a weakness, and it's really not. It's actually quite brave to do. I'd urge people to go in and read about their industry they're interested in. Get good people around you. Quite often people fall into a trap where they just get their mates around them, or they find the cheapest lawyer to represent them, and it's just not the way to go. Like, I'm not saying go to London and get the most expensive person. Go and find the right people for you, and get some loyal staff around you. And then, I think that gives you the best possible head start then to be able to go and pursue a new business.
And you're speaking about people there. Again, that's something that we see very consistently. Everybody always says it's about the people you're surrounding yourselves with. How do you choose those people? How do you find them, or make sure you're developing those relationships with them?
Yeah, it is tough. I mean, I've hired people in the past and they've not fitted in. It's not always their fault, and maybe we didn't research properly when we were taking people on. But when in the business we've got now, the core of the people I've known for a long time and I've worked with for a long time. As I mentioned to you, the unspoken non-negotiables that I always look for in a person. I do when I meet or interview someone. I do look for certain things, passion and hard work. I mean, that is the key thing. I mean, I haven't got a degree or anything like that, and when I'm meeting people all the time that are probably more qualified than I am, have probably got more knowledge than I have, but the fact is that they're not going to outwork me. That's a fact, and that's something I can control. So I know that if I'm up against somebody or going for a pitch or to win a contract, I know that I will leave everything in the room. So I will do everything I can, and most of the time since we've been here, I mean, we haven't lost a tender, and we've been up for a contract, we've not lost one, and that is because of the hard work and the team that we've got behind us.
And when you're coming up against your competition, apart from the hard work, which is obviously probably the most important thing, what is it that differentiates yourselves against the other players in the market?
I think it is the people, and it's strange. I mean, because a lot of the competition, because we are sort of the new kids on the block, and a lot of them have known me or my family for a long time, they're quite negative towards us at times. And it's at the start, I was always wanting to stand up for ourselves and fight back. But then I think when I was doing that a lot at the start, I thought, well, if I'm doing it for 5 minutes of my day, arguing back or sort of defending myself, that's 5 minutes of the day I'm not concentrating on my business, and then that they're winning then. So I thought, they're irrelevant to me. Let's just concentrate on our business. And quite often I've been in for pitches, and I've been to see people for contracts, and they've said all the competition did was talk about you and why we shouldn't use you, rather than, I said, well, I'm not here for that. And that's their downfall. Don't talk about me. Don't talk about other businesses. Just concentrate on your business. And I've heard all sorts, because our results have been really good this year. And I heard something the other day. I went to win a contract for a care home, and we won the contract. And the client I was with said the previous competitor that was in, they just spoke about you the whole time. They said, and she said she questioned the results, and our results were better than theirs. And they said, well, his results aren't real. He said, and I said, look. Well, all that tells you is our results are that good that even the competition think they're unbelievable.
You spoke a lot about what you do really well, like outworking competition, focusing on yourself, having a good team around you. What do you advise companies, businesses or entrepreneurs to avoid when they're starting up or when they're growing?
It's difficult because, I mean, we've been going 2 years now, and it's something that I preach but I'm not particularly good at. I think people should... when they're achieving some success, or when they've had a good, from my point of view, when you've had a good auction, is to sort of celebrate with your team. And I'm not good at that. I'm not good at being in the moment, and I need to get better at that. I've been told I need to get better than that, and I am working, trying to get better than that. But how I see myself as the driver of the business. Now, if I'm driving, I've got to look through the windscreen. If I'm looking through the wing mirror, I'm going to crash. Yeah. That's how I see it. So but sometimes, don't get me wrong, I should pull over and then enjoy the view sometimes. But I think some people... Then on the other side, I do see some people that have had a successful 1 minute, and they think they're buying some of the most expensive clothes, watches, really fast cars.
Holidays in Dubai.
Yeah, exactly. and it's an easy thing to get into that sort of mindset. Whereas for me, I'm just concentrating always on the next thing, and I think that is important, is to set yourself some goals every year. And all of my team do it. I do it. I set myself goals. And I try to hit, and each year, whether it's personal goals, which I haven't hit that well recently because I haven't been that present at home, which I will fix next year. But I would urge people then to just sort of set themselves some company and some personal goals each year, and give yourselves a target to hit.
Yeah. How do you manage that? The difference between saying, okay, I just need to focus purely on my business, and it's hard to stop and celebrate. As opposed to somebody who would just do one deal and they'd go, get a new car on lease or something. How do you, find a common goal between those two?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's how you are as a person. I think the way I've been brought up, I think I've been brought up with a lot of hard workers around me, like my grandparents and my granddad came to this country with next to nothing. I mean, he lied about his age to get a job. My grandmother, from my dad's side, was running shops, taught herself to speak English, and she was running shops in the middle of Southall during the race riots. And then from my mum's side,
I read about that in Paul's book.
Yeah, and then from my mum's side, my grandmother from my mum's side had to work 2 or 3 jobs because my mum's dad died in a work accident, and she didn't get any support. So I saw the sort of work ethic, and none of them ever rested on their laurels. And I thought, and I recognised that from an early age. And then with my parents, my dad working in shops, my mum when I was a kid working in old people's homes and nurseries during the day, and none of them were ever sort of content. And I appreciated and recognised that they were working for us. And so I think that's in me now. So I wouldn't just, when I've done a deal or when I've had an auction, I don't just think, we've arrived now. That's just not in my nature. I'm always looking at the next thing, how I can grow. And as I said to you before, because I've got so many people that stood next to me and were sort of went into battle with me at the start, all of those guys are relying on me to keep this going. And for the growth of the business, that is what I will carry on doing.
Love that. That's great. And the next part we're going to go into, so we ask our audience, questions, whether it's on LinkedIn or Instagram. We don't say your name. We want to leave that for the actual episode, but we'll give them a bit of a background. I think you might have seen a few on Instagram stories of, giving a background to, one of Midland's leading CEOs within the property industry. So I'm going to head into those questions now. The first one is from Natasha G on Instagram. She asks, where do you think the property market is heading in the next 5 years, and what impact has COVID had on the commercial real estate market?
The one thing that is certain is the uncertainty at the moment. we just don't know. What I've seen this year is that people are still passionate about buying property. I think there will be for the next 5 years. People still trust the property market. I mean, you're brought up as a youngster to buy a house, aren't you? Everyone thinks buying a property is safe. And I think particularly now, I think people would prefer that than sticking your money in a bank with a modest interest return. And the stock market is so volatile all the time. I think with property, although prices can fluctuate, it's never going to be like a stock market. And at the end of the day, if the prices go up and down, if you bought a property, you still own that property in 5 years, provided you're paying your mortgage, etc. So I think that there's, particularly in the regions, and Birmingham being at the top of that with HS2, with Commonwealth Games and everything like that, I do think that Birmingham's going to be at the forefront, and I think the Birmingham property market looks strong, particularly for the next couple of years, and I think it will remain that way.
That's great to hear. Next one is from Sharon Kaur via LinkedIn. What's your top 3 pieces of advice when starting out a business? You've probably given a lot there during the interview.
We touched on it. We touched on it earlier. I think it's know your industry, learn your industry. Don't just because it's the flavour of the month, just jump on it, because it won't work. You need to go and learn your industry. Do whatever it takes to learn it, whether it be go and see people who have done it before. Everything's so accessible now. It's on YouTube. You can go and view things and learn about things.
Home course.
Yeah, exactly. You can see interviews with all these really, really good people. Go and do that. Get yourself some really, really good people around you. That's really, really important. I think that's probably the key thing, is to get the right people around you. And also just keep setting yourself targets, because I think a lot of people go into things sort of and they limp into it rather than sprinting through the door. They want to they like the idea of owning a business, they like the idea of doing it, but they don't want to sort of really push themselves. And I think you've got to. I'm not naturally the most outgoing person. I don't go out mixing and talk to a lot of people. I've got my close mates and my close family, and that's fine. But you've got to put your head above the parapet when it's your business. You've got to sort of be there to be shot at, and that's what you've got to do.
Right. Next one is from Alexander Schonfield, also on LinkedIn. Do you have any tips for improving your mindset?
I think a lot of people, you're born with a certain way, and you can change and things. And I think you need to just sort of focus. You have to, and I think goals help me. But I think we spoke about this off camera a bit earlier. I think when our generation now, everything is just an instant generation. So people want to. I was speaking to a mate of mine the other day, and he bought some trainers online, and he was genuinely annoyed that it was going to take 2 days to arrive. And I think I want next day, and then like people are.
Impact of Amazon.
Exactly, and then you can buy meals instantly. You go on a date by swiping left or right. Everything's just so instant, and I think people are so impatient now, and they're not prepared to sort of put the hard work into. That's something you've got to be prepared. And in terms of your mindset, I think it's down to you, isn't it? You've got to set yourself a goal. You've got to recognise that you want to do the hard work, because a lot of people want the nice car, the nice house that a success will bring, but they don't want to do the work to be able to get there. And because there is a lot of things on YouTube and LinkedIn and Instagram where people are sort of perceived as being rich quick and famous quick, I think there's a lot of people that are trying to go down that route. I mean, even at my son's school, and he's still very young, he's only 6, but the mindset for children is, when they go to sports day, the kid that comes last gets the same prize as the kids that comes first, and it's not preparing them for the real world. And I get why you do it at the age of 6. Because you want to build confidence and stuff like that. But as and when they get older, you've got to bring that element into it, because that's why we have got a generation now of there's lots of issues with mental health, anxiety, stress levels and stuff like that, and it's a real issue. Yeah. And I've experienced it slightly myself when I was at my previous job, and it was something that I was probably never recognised mental health. And I was working in a business where although I was the best performing part of the business, I'd got to a point where I felt unappreciated in my former business. And I woke up one night and I thought I was having a heart attack.
Oh, no way.
And it's not something I recognised. And it was obviously, at the time, it ended up being a panic attack. I was ended up being in hospital. And my son was still 2, so I had to go in the back of an ambulance. And my uncle Paul actually came to see me in the hospital at 3 a.m. He said, what are you playing at? Blah, 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 blah. And, we had a good chat, with the doctor, and at that point is when I decided for me it was time for me to get out of that business and then go out and do something on my own, which is what we ended up doing.
Oh, wow. So have you gone through that yourself in your last company? And is that why you're so head focused on supporting your staff?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I've seen it. I've been there. I've had managers and people above me who have wanted to take credit for my work, and I've seen what that does to your confidence, what it does to you as a person. So I'm very, very keen to support and give the right sort of praise and rewards to our staff. There's a lot of our staff who came with me on day one who've got equity in the business, and they deserve it. So they're treated like it's their own business. We pay staff well, we bonus them well, we praise them. As I said, we've got the coaching that we do with them. So that's very much from my own experiences where I've seen where I've not felt appreciated, or I've felt that no matter what I do, there is other people that were getting credit for it. And shortly after that sort of episode, I call it, that I had, I then made my mind up that I was going to go out on my own. It wasn't necessarily going to be auctions, it was going to be in property. But auctions is something that I was good at, so that's why I thought I'd go down that route. But in my final then, so that happened, and then there was about 18 months left. I still did 18 months at my previous employer. But from that moment on, my life just changed, because from that point, I said to myself, I'm going to run this business like I run my own. It's like a dress rehearsal. Yeah. Without the risk, if something went wrong, nothing would really happen to me. So that 18-month period, I treated it like my business, and it was the best 18 months my old business ever had in terms of sales. It's a record sales, record fee income. So that then gave me the confidence that I'm running this business like it's my own. Now let's go and do it on my own, because I've tried it whilst working and had the insecurity of a job, and it worked well at the time. So I thought, if I can do it, then go out on my own and give it a go.
No, that's great. I'm glad picked that question up, because I didn't know that. And again, it just touches upon so many issues which so many other people are going through, but it's just not spoken about.
It's not something that probably a lot of my staff who do watch just won't know about it. A lot of people don't. A lot of my family wouldn't know about it. It was something that I wasn't that open about before. But my uncle was there, and the doctor was there, and they're speaking to me about what's going on in your life. And I was saying, well, I've got a wife, I've got a 2-year-old son at the time, and I love him. And they started talking about different things, and then the doctor actually said to me, I think it's your job. And I thought, well, no, I don't feel stressed, it'd be silly. But then when I went back and reflected and recognised that she was completely right, and my wife was brilliant with me at the time. So I mean, I had a good job at my old place. I was a director, as you know, And my wife, I remember her saying to me, look, leave. I don't care if you earn less money. And obviously that was going to have a material impact on her life and my son's life. But she was willing for me to leave and do whatever to get my head right. And she was a great support when I then set up the business. And there was a point where we weren't earning any money at the start.
Yeah, that's it.
And she was very supportive of that. And she recognised that there was potential. And she believed in me. And she knew that once I got my head into what I wanted to do, I would definitely achieve what I wanted.
I love how you turn that negative into a massive positive.
Yeah, and I think that's important because there are a lot of people that are suffering with mental health, and it's not the end of the world. I think there's so much help and support out there now, and you can see from other people that have suffered or had issues themselves or have been in jobs that have not enjoyed it. There's always more to life. That you don't need to just get yourself into such a rut. I urge people then to go and do something about it. And I know it's easier said than done at times, but. And I've always said, if anybody was ever with our staff or anybody in the wider community, if anybody had any issues, wanted to speak to me, I'm always open. I'm happy to speak, especially younger people, because we've always gone down the route of employing younger staff and bringing them in. And sort of a lot of them emulate my journey, and a lot of the people before me did as well. Start from the bottom, learn the business, and there's a career path that a lot of our staff started as either juniors or receptionists, and now sort of director level and things like this. And there is a real path. So I'm happy to speak to people that are in difficult positions.
Promoting working for Bond Wolfe very well here.
Yeah.
You get a lot of applicants after this. I think Suki's going to give you a CV. But no, I know we're doing audience questions. Krish and Suki both watching this. Do you have any questions or anything you want to ask? Yeah. It's really insightful. Anything you're thinking of, Suki?
No, sort of like, what do you say to people like that are putting their graft into a company and they're not being recognised? What's your best advice? Yeah,
I think there are times, and a lot of the times I sort of bit my tongue, and I'd be in board meetings, and sometimes you're in a board meeting, you've got some people that don't say anything, and you've got some people that are sort of the loudest people in the boardroom. They say the most without actually saying anything, and they're gesturing, and they're just talking in sort of cliches and throwing their arms about, and they actually don't know what they're talking about. And they're the guys that are taking the credit. So I've been there, and I've been the sort of person in the middle, and I think you've got to stand up for yourself. You've got to speak up. You've got to go and see whoever your manager is or whoever your leader is and take some advice. And you've got to... What I did is I went and said, these are my numbers, and I'm not being recognised for these numbers, and they're sort of got taken aback, well, you should be okay. But obviously I'm not, because I know I can do more. I can go out and go and do this on my own. And I don't think they believed I would at the time. I have.
You're wrong. Yeah. Good question. I hope you weren't hinting at me. But no, I love that. So yeah, we'll bring it now to the final 5 questions. Okay. You can answer between a word and a sentence. First one, what impact do you want to leave on the world?
I don't want anyone to talk about me ever.
No impact.
I'm sort of in the background. I don't like being spoken about everywhere. But to be honest, I'd like to be known as somebody who worked hard, looked after people who were loyal to them. I want to leave a legacy in a way for my son, and my wife's pregnant again, and we've got another child on the way. So that for me that's the most important thing for me. And as I said to you before, in terms of the Bond Wolfe brand, I want the Bond Wolfe brand to be one of the recognised and most successful property brands in the UK within the next 10 years, and that is something that I am passionate about, and I'm certain I'll get there. So that's the sort of thing I want to leave behind.
No doubt. What is your why?
It's interesting. I've been asked this a few times. And when we set up, I sat down with our group and I said, we're going to set up a business. Why are we doing it? Why are we doing it? And we threw around ideas. And what the business why we came up with is we wanted to be the property business that sellers choose to sell with, buyers want to buy from, and employees are proud to work for. I think that is the business why. My own why is I want to build a business that is the most successful and most recognised in the UK. And my main why is my children and my wife. They're my driver. I think your why's got to be what you're passionate about and what is your driver. Yeah. They're my driver. They're the thing. They're the people that I want to sort of work for. And a tactic I used to use early on when I was in board meetings was because you'd have the people that were gesturing all the time, the other people that were quiet, and I would always get my point across. And the tactic, and at the times I was sometimes hesitant to get my point across in a meeting when I was younger. And the tactic I used when my son was born, and my friend who's a coach, told me this tactic is to just act like your son's in the boardroom. So when you think your son's watching you, then you want to step up and you will get your point across then. So that they're my why really.
That's actually a good tactic.
Yeah, honestly, it had worked for me because to your kids you're a superhero no matter what you do. You're just dad and you're a superhero. So that I've used that tactic. I mean, I don't use it less now to become more comfortable in the surroundings and stuff. But when I was 27, 28 in a board meeting, it can be daunting with all these guys that are 40s and 50s and so I use that tactic. But I think it's important when you're a young guy not to be overawed. And I fell into that trap as a young guy. But when you get to know, without being horrible, when you get to know these people, they're not actually that impressive. You build these people up in your mind, and I'm not saying it to be negative about them. You just build them to sort of like untouchable, like they've achieved all this. But when you're holding your own with them, you think, hold on a second, I'm okay here. I'm comfortable in these surroundings, and that's what I got to in the end.
Probably slightly different, but there's a saying, never meet your idols.
Yeah.
Next question: who is your biggest role model and why?
See, it's difficult, a single role model. As I spoke to you about my grandparents from both sides, I've just sort of, for them to come to this country and to achieve what they achieved outweighs anything I can ever achieve, honestly, because they couldn't speak the language and they had a lot of the sort of racism and things like that. And although we touched on it earlier and it still exists in our industry, in our world now, they had it really bad then. So I think a lot of what they have achieved, and my parents for everything they've done and their hard work. But I think from a business point of view, my Uncle Paul has been massive. He's always there for advice. I don't always take it, which sometimes frustrates him, but I think he likes the fact that I push back and we've got a really strong relationship. And he's always there to give me advice. And it used to be, having him there used to sometimes frustrate me to a point, which I've never really told him this, but because I used to think I have to work harder because everyone thinks I'm just his nephew. Yeah. So I thought I have to work harder because I don't want people to be known as that. I want to be known as me. But in the end, I embraced the fact that I was his nephew because it can open certain doors. And although there are going to get people that are going to throw stuff at you, I embraced it, and now we've got a really strong relationship. And what he's achieved is incredible. And so as you say, there's no better person to learn from, particularly in property, than him.
Oh yeah, great role model. What is your one skill which you believe has helped you most so far?
As I said before to you, I've not got degrees and things like that. My biggest thing is my work ethic, and that I genuinely believe that. I mean, I won't be in any sort of position and let someone outwork me, whether that's with my mates in the gym. If they're pushing something, I'll make sure I go, even if and next time I'm aching, I'll make sure I can just push it or lift a little bit more, because I want to leave everything. I don't, if this business, or if I hadn't succeeded, I'd never wanted to sit there and think, I could have done this differently, or I should have done this. I'm in a position now where I did exactly what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it, and I left everything in the room, and I gave it my all. So if it didn't work, I couldn't have that nagging doubt that I should have done this differently. So that is the main thing for me, is my work ethic.
Great. And what does success mean to you?
Success for me, I mean, I spoke to some friends of mine, and it's good for me to have friends that aren't in the property industry, because they don't care whether I've sold £200 million worth of property in the last 2 years. All they care about is whether it's my round or not. Yeah. Or they want to talk about football less. They talk about football less now because I'm a Liverpool fan, and obviously with us doing okay, they talk about football less with me. But in terms of what is success for me is family. So when I see my friends, and a lot of them are doing really well in their own industries as well, and I'm so proud of them. But the thing that fills me most with pride is when I see them with their beautiful wives and kids, and I've seen what they've achieved. And that for me is what success is to give my wife and my kids and my parents and everybody around me the lives that I think they deserve. And if that is then pushing this auction business further or doing other bits of the business, that's all part of it. Yeah. But for me, the real success is my health, and sort of the goodwill of the people around me, and if my family and friends and everyone are doing well and are healthy and successful.
Well, a great note to end on. And for anybody that wants to follow you, whether, I know you're active on LinkedIn or other social media forms, or follow Bond Wolfe and Auctions, where can they go?
Yeah, so I mean, look, you can go onto our website, which is bondwolfeauctions.com. I'm not brilliant on social media. I will get better, as I said to you, that the new business we're going to go down there is going to be pushing that. So, yeah, I mean, you can follow all of us on all those sort of normal platforms, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and everything like that.
Great, perfect. Well, incredible having you
Cheers.
on. Really, really excited, before the show, and it was great meeting you. And for everybody at home, like, share, comment, subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you.
Cheers, Graham.